What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It's the Earthmaster here on this beautiful, cold and windy and rainy Thursday night here in Northern California. It is December 8th, 2022, about 7:23 p.m. here, California time. And latest quake out here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows a 2.1 off the coast here. Well, it kind of looks like it's off the coast there of Morocco, possibly. Either way, seeing a little bit of activity ramp up in this region over the last couple hours here. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here first from the USGS volcanoes on Mauna Loa. Still underneath a warning, color code orange and warning level. The latest updated information here, let's check it out, from the USGS volcano site shows that the eruption continues. One active fissure, that's going to be fissure number 3, feeding lava flows downslope. Now fissure 3 vent continues to erupt, but the supply of lava was reduced this morning. Lava was overtopping channels near the vent with flows extending no further than 2.75 miles from the vent as of approximately 9:30 a.m. this morning, December 8th. The channels below this point appear drained of lava and probably no longer feed the main flow front. So that flow front remains stalled about 1.7 miles from the Daniel K Highway. Now I want to give you guys a little view here of what's going on. Got some active fissure openings here. Supplying lava downslope, fissure number 3. And there's some breakout points where the lava is taking some new flows, new roads downslope, so to speak. Even though the output here is a little bit less, things are kind of mellowing out temporarily. But the flow front here, this is the extreme flow front, which was 1.7 miles from this highway, has stopped because of these breakout points upslope, and now this little lava flow is finding new ways to migrate away from the area. So kind of watching that. The 1984 eruption lasted for about 22 days, if I remember right. And this one here started back on November 27th, and today's the 8th. So definitely not looking at 22 days yet. There's no telling how long this is going to last. This may be it. It may stop and here in a couple days, and that'll be it. But who knows? I do know that Mauna Loa does do occasionally some explosive eruptions, and explosive meaning ejecting material out of the summit area. Now that's not normally common, but the last explosive eruption was back in 1843. But there's definitely some geologic evidence for some explosive activity in the past 1,000 years or so. Geologists have identified at least 4 debris fans comprised of fragmented rock deposits on top of lava flows that spread from the summit. The largest blocks found in these deposits are as large as about 7.2 feet in diameter and weigh more than about 38,000 pounds. So eruptions, most of the time here at Mauna Loa are pretty mellow. Just these fissures opening up and spewing out some lava and fountains of lava. But occasionally, we do see those explosive eruptions take place with ejection of material and rock that could be, kind of lodged down there. But it's been a while since we've seen one of those. Right now, that's currently not happening. Again, latest information here is that the flow front here has stalled. So that is not further advancing, but these breakout points here are kind of channeling away from areas here of the main flow and finding new regions to explore, so to speak. Sulfur dioxide emission rates of approximately 130,000 tons per day were measured. Yesterday, it looks like, remain elevated at this time. Volcanic gas is rising high and vertically into the atmosphere before being blown to the west at higher latitudes, generating fog of areas downwind. Now I want to check out real quick the windy map and check out the sulfur dioxide emissions that are being produced from this volcano there on the Big Island. And It looks a little bit less. I know there's still some SO2 emissions. There's that movement just kind of being blown west here. The SO2 emissions here, and getting caught up in what appears to be possibly a high pressure system, just a very small one in this area. Now we do have a trough of low pressure here along the west coast that some of this material may get caught up in. We got rain falling, so I'm not for sure if I want to be drinking that rain out there. A lot of times I save the water, feed it to my plants, and even once in a while sample it, because it's sometimes the purest water. But with all this SO2 emissions up in the atmosphere, I may not do that. Don't want my plants to die. But either way, it is getting caught up here around this high. There's still a pretty good concentrated amount here from last week or so, when the high pressure was just keeping it centered and concentrated here over the area of the Gulf. But it looks a little bit less far as the emissions go, but it's still kicking out some SO2 for sure. Multimedia here, the latest. Let me go over here to the webcams real quick. The latest still image. Now they have recently just added their live stream back up here about 50 minutes ago. I'm going to keep an eye on it, see if it continues to run. They've been having some issues with it. It breaks down, runs for about an hour, breaks down. So they've been inconsistent with keeping a live stream up and running. So I've been using this public domain image here that updates every couple minutes or so. But notice things are not spewing up as awesome as they were last night. It looks a little mellow, but that may have just been the shot that happened to be created here at this time point. Either way, continue to keep an eye on it. Mauna Loa, the latest activity there from that volcano. All right, what else we got here? Earthquake activity is kind of dying down. There's not a whole lot of earthquake activity currently up around the Mauna Loa area. Kilauea volcano still showing some movement, still erupting, confined to the crater area. And the Pahala area. All things look, for the most part here over the last 24 hours, things look pretty calm-ish. Because this activity is kind of below the standard background levels that we normally see here. So things are just kind of dying down in the earthquake department across the beautiful big island of Hawaii. All right, what do we got here for the West Coast movement? Some activity kicking up around the Long Valley supervolcano, the latest earthquake here just south of there, 1.8 near the Round Valley, California area. Northwest of Bishop, looks like 9.9 kilometers deep for that earthquake. No major swarming kicking up currently, just some very small microquakes in the area of Long Valley supervolcano. And also over here around western Nevada, things kind of just seeing a couple small microquakes in the area. One area I've noticed here of increasing activity, of course, up here in northern Nevada. We'll get to that here in a second. But also here north of the Lake Tahoe region, we're seeing some activity uptick around the, again, north of Truckee. Seeing some small microquakes kick up here. Just starting to see a little bit of uptick here in this region of the Sierra Nevadas. So nothing major going on, but definitely noticeable. And up here in northern Nevada, towards the Oregon border area, still seeing some activity. It looks like the last earthquake, though, was 10 o'clock this morning. This brings a total tally of earthquakes here over the last 30 days to around 84 earthquakes. And the largest one was a 3.5 here in the mix. Pretty shallow earthquakes there, about 0 kilometers. Some down there, about 15 kilometers. So it's all over the place as far as the depth of these earthquakes. And there was a couple swarms out here a few years back just to the west of here. This activity is a little bit to the east, but still within this general same location there of the Sheldon region. So just kind of keeping an eye on it. Not a whole lot going on throughout Washington currently. Got one earthquake, it looks like, this afternoon. 0.6 around Mount St. Helens. A little bit of activity around Mount Rainier. One earthquake outside of Seattle. Nothing major going on. Just a couple small microquakes in the area of the Washington region. Northern California, a little spotty. Aside from our Clear Lake volcanic field. And the Bay Area is pretty quiet. Gosh darn it. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot of movement currently happening here along the West Coast. Nothing within the last hour. Just this is pretty much all small microquakes across the southern portion of the state. Yellowstone National Park got a couple small quakes listed up there this morning. Let's go ahead and check this out here real quick on the Yellowstone overview and see what we have here for activity. Looks like the swarm for the most part still consisting around, or still situated around the Maple Creek area. A couple earthquakes here within the last few hours. It's going to be these red lines here. Very small microquakes, nothing big, but there has been a few more listed and not reported up here across the area. All right, Texas area outside of Pecos. Last earthquake was a 2.5. This morning time period, about 5 o'clock. So what's new? What's happening out here that's new? Well, let's go ahead and pull up. Let's see here. Not a whole lot through the Western Pacific. In activity out here around Papua New Guinea, Indonesia area. Last one was a 4.8, 120 kilometers deep into that region. Now, I want to check out the earthquake 3D globe here across the area and pinpoint. Well, that didn't work out all that great. Let's see what happened there. It's kind of weird. Just froze up on me. Sometimes it does that. Whenever I go full screen on the earthquake 3D program, it does that, and I don't get it. So we'll deal with that a little bit. I don't know what's going on. And I'll try to close it. It will just completely freeze up. Try to close the program. And it will just hang. So it's really weird. It does that on occasion. But all right. Either way. See what we got out here around the region of Russia. Activity this morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning. Over there, some activity, but for the most part, we did see a little bit of swarming off the coast here of Morocco, as indicated on the Earthquake 3D program. So things that look like they're trying to advance here a little bit further westward. We did have a divergent boundary earthquake out here in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge early this morning. But since then, really nothing has popped up this afternoon or evening time period. Down into the South America region, got some earthquake activity outside of the Peru area, 5.0. Pretty shallow earthquake at about 10 kilometers. Prior to that, some activity down south along the Peru-Chile Trench, and most of that is deep into the Peru-Chile Trench area. Off the coast here, Mexico, along the plate boundary. This morning, 4.3 there at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a little on the quiet side right now, I would say, as far as earthquake activity goes out here. Last 7 days of 4.5 and above movement could give us a couple areas to watch here. Considering the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench really hasn't seen any. This area up here along the Aleutian Trench, been watching this area pretty closely here. We haven't really seen any sufficient movement. California is always on target, but I think there's some magic crystal ball here that prevents the West Coast from having a major earthquake. But then again, there's some areas that are strained out here that each day that goes by is just going to be it's going to be bigger and bigger. And as far as the magnitude goes, but still watching, definitely watching the West Coast and areas around New Zealand. Really haven't seen anything since that 5.1 back on the 1st. That was just north of the Lake Taupo area, super volcano. So Kermadec Trench areas, Kuril-Kamchatka Trench up here, and the Aleutian Trench. Got to watch those areas. Here is the latest drums. Let me refresh this, make sure we got the latest activity here. Not a whole lot. Notice that? Things pretty quiet here across the supervolcano area of North Island, New Zealand. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity whatsoever being reported there across the area. All right, Earthquakes Canada map. Looks like some activity kicking up here around Alberta area once again. This area has been swarming pretty nicely, and it looks like looks like there's a pretty good cluster of earthquakes out there in those oil fields. And I say the oil fields because, well, that's what's out there. Not making it up. Just that's a fact, ma'am. That's a 100% fact. Let's go back here the last 30 days, 4.5 and above, and there's only a couple listed up here on the USGS map, but Earthquakes Canada showed a lot more. So out here, there's a lot of these oil fields, oil pumping operations. This is pretty much the Canada version of Texas and Oklahoma area for here in the States. They're all over the place. And that's what these little regions are. There's a lot of them. So they did have some earthquake activity out there over the past month. Quite a bit, actually. A lot more than what the USGS is showing. And Earthquakes Canada does have a bunch going on there in that area. Let me see if I can pull up. Let's see here. Back out of here just a little bit. Alberta region. Seismogram viewers here across Earthquakes Canada. There's a few. I'm sure there's a lot more than what's being reported here on this map, but at least for the Earthquakes Canada map, we can see a couple of them. They have some live seismographs that are going, so you can see the shaking, and it looks like it's shaking a little bit here. And this activity is within, my birds are going crazy, within the last hour. Some earthquake activity kicking up here. This seismograph station is located south here of our area of interest, where we've seen that activity. I believe, let me see here, what do we got? High Prairie. High Prairie right there. Yeah, I believe, yeah, because kind of hard to tell. I'm not super familiar with this area. But I believe the seismograph station here is south of the region of swarming that we're seeing. But either way, there's definitely some earthquake activity popping up here, as you can see on the live seismograph station. The 1 hour data shows that activity kicking up and continuing. Not to mention there, on the map of the Earthquakes Canada map, showing the latest earthquake there across the area near Reno, Alberta region, 2.2, 5 kilometers deep. Rest of Canada, definitely active out here, but some of this movement here is some older activity from a few days ago. Let's go ahead and check out the trimmer map here tonight. I'm kind of curious to see what we're doing. Nothing. Zip zero, 7 o'clock, 7:41 my time. Well, I think it should be out by now. Most of the time it is. So we'll check back tomorrow morning for the update and see if this has been changed or not. A little on the odd side. Alrighty, let's see here. What else we got here, folks, to chat about? Space weather. Look at all these sunspots. It's been a while since I've seen that many sunspots listed up here on the Solar Ham site. So let's check it out. There's the visible disk. If you're looking through a solar telescope, that's kind of what you're going to see. Now, as far as the magnetic structures here, we can check out the latest imagery. There's a bunch of them, obviously. Look at all that. And notice most of them are definitely in the northern hemisphere of the sun. There's that giant sunspot here, 3153. The latest imagery here still shows some active regions up north, obviously, and a couple of these may harbor some potential for some flaring. Maybe possibly this region right here as well. Getting a little bit of dynamic setup with these two certain areas. But overall, the current activity level is pretty minimal. Very minimal. And it's below the sea level threshold. I mean, we're only going to be lucky for so long, I think. It seems like these massive sunspots come around. They look all pretty for our images and cameras and telescopes and our spacecraft to look at. But and then once they go around around the opposite side there of the sun, then they start exploding and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. There was a number of coronal mass ejections today, but each of these were far side activity away from the Earth. One was the result of a prominence eruption behind the east limb earlier. No impacts to our geomagnetic field is expected. Look, even these folks agree. Sooner or later, we are bound to get lucky. I know a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Why do you want solar flares to happen? Don't you know what they can do? Well, I do. But if we get a major X flare with a large CME Earth-directed, then we could run into some power grid issues, some spacecraft issues up in the atmosphere or orbiting Earth. But I think it's a really cool effect. I mean, I really want to see some auroras down here in California. I don't know about you, but I've never seen the auroras. So, and they're possible here in Northern California, possible down into Florida if you have a good enough solar storm. And we haven't seen any in quite a while, a long time. So I like activity. I like to see this on the uptick. But right now, things are Earth side are pretty mellow. But that's all subject to change. So we'll watch these pretty closely and see if anything changes. Current conditions here show a little bit of elevated conditions around the KP index board, but the aurora forecast looks pretty minimal. That's going to mean that the interplanetary magnetic field structure is stable, density is low, speed is still somewhat elevated, but not really expecting much right now as far as the solar storm possibilities. Yeah, everything's green after tonight. No major noteworthy events detected, and no major coronal holes currently facing us or in the forecast at all. We just got these sunspots to look at, looking all pretty, but not really doing much. All right, what else is there, folks? I think that's about it. Again, let me refresh this and see if they got the latest image here. Yeah, it kind of looks like it comes and goes. Some of these fountains out here definitely shooting quite the distance up into the air. We'll see what the night brings. See what tomorrow brings, as far as the declining in the lava flow department. We'll definitely watch that. Again, like I said, 1984, 22 days the eruption lasted, and we're not close to that number yet. All right, guys, have a good night. Have a good day. Have a good morning, depending on where you're at out there. I'm going to reset the Earthquake 3D program here, get it back to normal, because it's just being weird for some reason. It wants to freeze up on me. Have a good night, folks. We'll catch you guys a little bit later on. Peace out.